Hi everyone, I'm Laura Gail Locke. The Kellogg and Webb intersection is the busiest intersection in the city of Wichita, and today we're going to give you an update on a project that's going to be taking place in that area. We're very pleased to have three guests here with us today. We have Councilmember Pete Meitzner, Jim Armour, our city engineer, and Mike Jacobs, our special projects engineer. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Laura Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I imagine you guys probably get quite a few questions about this project.
Yes, we do. A lot of it is kind of like, well, what's going on with it recently and what's happened along Kellogg. We might give a little bit of a history along Kellogg. And back in 1985, was it, Mike? The county passed a countywide sales tax, 1 cent sales tax, and half of that money goes to freeway construction. So we've been using that to improve Kellogg. Currently, we've improved 13 miles of Kellogg from the west side to the east side of town that you can travel without a stoplight. Mm-hmm. And previous to that, we counted up, I think there was 15 or 16 stoplights in that section. So this is quite an improvement.
That's impressive. Tell me a little bit more, Mike, about what else has been taking place in that area as far as the construction.
Well, as Jim said, in '85, the sales tax was approved by the voters, and pretty soon after that, 1990, some of the first projects were started, and going out to the east, we completed the Rock Road area in 2010, and even in '95, we were starting to think what's beyond that, so we were starting to do some preliminary work all the way out to K96 and beyond, and we really are concentrating on the Webb next. It's the most needed project, and so that we've been doing that design. It's nearing completion now.
Councilmember Meitzner, maybe you could tell me a little bit about why it's so important to start working on this area next.
Well, as I've spoken to some of my counterparts here in the council, that is the single daily traffic jam starting about 4:30 or 5 every day. And as you said, it is ironically the busiest intersection in the city. And District 2 is in the businesses and people that live out there are not very demanding about other things, but they really are asking, what are we going to do to loosen that up?
Mm-hmm. Maybe you guys could explain that a little bit about what actually will take place in that area.
Well, the intersection at Kellogg and Webb has been really the most challenging design of any of the Kellogg projects, and it's due largely to the close proximity of the Kansas Turnpike, exit 50, just a quarter mile west of Webb. By needing to provide access in and out of the turnpike that close to a major intersection such as Webb presented a lot of challenges. I don't think we wanted to get traffic stopping too much in there, and so we came up, I want to really give credit to our engineering staff and our in-house design team that came up with a plan to provide free flow access from the turnpike to Kellogg and to Webb.
That's great. Mike, will you take us through exactly what the project will look like?
Let me do that. And also the new freeway that we're building, as you can see from what we've built before, is much larger than the existing road. And so trying to get that through that corridor with as little disruption and keep the businesses in place and keep the traffic going at the same time is quite a challenge. And one of the things that in the past, some of the locations like this, we would not have continued the frontage roads through. We have determined that those frontage roads are very, very important, and we're going to put those through these major intersections like the Turnpike and Webb, and that's been quite a challenge. And we brought an image with us that shows just how big that is and what a challenge that is. The Webb intersection, really what we're trying to do, there is an interchange with the Turnpike today. It has large loops. That part's going to go away, but what we're creating new is a interchange at the Webb area. So it's going to be a diamond interchange. We have numerous interchanges like it along the way. Well, what complicates it is we're trying to build an interchange for the Turnpike within the Webb interchange, and we have an image like that also. That's very difficult for me to explain without images because it's fairly complex, but the challenge is to make it a simple, user-friendly interchange. So even though when we talk about it and you look at it on paper, it's very complex, the users will find it to be very simple.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember, what were you hearing from the people in your district about what their hopes were for this project as it plays out?
Well, the impact of obviously the traffic jams and the businesses that are trying to keep going through these traffic jams, but there's also cars today that are diverting from staying on Kellogg to use our other arterials and to avoid that intersection. That puts extra wear and tear on some of our other streets, and so it's kind of a snowball effect, I would say.
Was it important to them to have the frontage roads?
Oh yes, the frontage roads is a great agreement that we've come up with, and that was with Mike and Jim. We mentioned working with T-Works, which is the Kansas Transportation and Highway, or maybe you can explain exactly what the T-Works.
Well, I want to give credit to our elected officials. They worked closely with the Kansas Department of Transportation when they were developing the new state transportation program called T-Works. And that kind of developed over the last 5 or 6 years, and generally in the last couple of years it was pretty intense. And I think due to the good working relationship our elected officials have had and city staff with Kansas Department of Transportation, the Kellogg and Webb project was one of those selected for state funding.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us an idea of how much you think this project will help, how big of a difference it'll make?
Well, one of the examples that we've used previously is that there's 100,000 vehicles a day on Kellogg now over in the downtown area. And if you take a person's time and you said, hey, it's worth $10 an hour, and you save 12 minutes in that 13 miles, you would save $200,000 a day. And that's only if there's one person in the vehicle at $10 an hour, and the national average is about 1.6. So you multiply that out, and it's like $114 million a year in just savings for time.
That's an impressive number.
So there are huge delays currently out there at Kellogg and Webb. It's probably by far the biggest delay of any intersection that we have in town. We're anxious to get it started. We're happy with the design that we've just in the process of completing, and then we'll begin right-of-way acquisition here in the very near future.
Let me add that part of the T-Works, one of the reasons we can accelerate this is that the state has realized that Wichita, since 1985, has been funding on its own Kellogg expansion due to that half-cent sales tax. And so where other communities maybe were getting more help directly from the state with highway funds. And so by us able to work with the state to make them realize that, they said, oh, you know, here we will help pay a large percentage of close to 90% or so of the project. And so instead of us having to delay it since 1985, continue to delay, as others have said, as Kellogg's been going on since they've been born, but this will accelerate that, which was not going to allow us to accelerate that until a timely fashion.
That's exactly right. The $65 million that KDOT is giving us for construction for this project is really helping us accelerate it and start it a little bit sooner. And that through the whole Kellogg corridor, what's really driven the schedule is the ability to generate the revenue from the sales tax to pay for the construction. It's not really been the design, and you know, oftentimes people don't really understand why it takes so long. It's really how fast can you afford to pay and invest that. Those investments are being paid back, as Jim said, is a very conservative estimate of how much is returned to the community and to our citizens in this time savings.
Mm-hmm. What type of economic impact will it have? I know you mentioned all the cost savings when you multiply it out with people saving time going through the area, but what about businesses in the area who will benefit from traffic being able to flow better?
Well, my experience, if you're driving farther east of this intersection, you already see that the businesses are expanding rather rapidly. A lot of the car dealers are relocating further east on Kellogg. There's other great growth going on out by the Lowe's and such, and fortunately those businesses have all been set back, so we have the appropriate room, as Mike had talked about in the aerial photo. You can take an aerial photo, you can see how wide it takes us to do it the right way, especially with the access roads, and then you see what our challenge is and what Kellogg's doing today. Mm-hmm.
So
they'll be happy.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, the businesses will be very happy. It'll be a painful few years, but they're going to ultimately be very happy.
So what will happen next?
The next step in the process is the right-of-way acquisition, and we're just in the process of initiating that, and that will probably take a good amount of time, and hopefully we can negotiate successfully with our right-of-way folks, Ken, and acquire the necessary property that's needed to widen the roadway.
Mm-hmm. And then what about once the actual construction work starts?
It'll be done in several phases. The first phase will be utility relocation. That's such a big utility corridor with some major gas pipelines, underground cable lines, underground phone, that it'll take almost a year to get all of that relocated. So we'll start construction on that first, and as a part of the project, some of that work will occur, and then probably 6 months into that, then we can begin construction on some roadway.
Mm-hmm. And then, Mike, what happens then?
Well, as Jim said, we'll start that project, but it's going to be in late 2014, early 15. This project, when we were first looking at it, so complex, we were looking at maybe possibility of a 7-year construction period to keep the traffic going and the complexity of it. Because we've been able to work with the Turnpike and they've helped us along and given some concessions, and we're going to restrict some access at various points, but we think it's all manageable, and we've gotten that down to 5 years, and we're hoping to get that down into a 4-year period. You know, it's very complex. We've identified over 3,000 steps we have to go through, and we're still working with details. So at this point, I'm going to still say it's about 5 years, but we're very hopeful we can get it down to about 4 years. And obviously, the less time it takes, the less it costs, the less disruption to the people there, and that's our goal. You know, we've kind of had to balance access, cost, and disruption to people while we're doing it. We're trying to do that juggling act.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those 3,000 steps? I mean, that sounds like a lot. I think people don't realize that.
Well, I want to give credit to the Kansas Turnpike Authority for working with us on allowing us to kind of do some access, innovative access management during construction. And I think by doing that, we shortened the sequence probably at least 9 months and maybe a year. We've also worked closely with the Kansas Department of Transportation, and we think we've got a pretty good layout in getting the intersection built. Carrying 65,000 vehicles a day through construction is a challenge, mm-hmm. and doing it safely is even more. So it's going to be a challenge, but one that we're looking forward to.
Absolutely.
You know, most construction projects people think of as there's going to be delay from the construction. But I think because there are so many cars going through there today with the left turns on Webb, we're anticipating that traffic will actually take less time to get through the intersection during construction. Once we can get the first phase is really going to be the most painful, as Jim said, moving the utilities and building the frontage roads. Once we can get those into place, we think it's going to function better during construction than it does today. And then obviously when we finish it, it's going to work even better.
Now, why is that?
Well, primarily the intersection at Webb and most intersections, you split out left turns into their own phase. And because during construction we're going to continue to carry 2 lanes of traffic north and south and 2 lanes east and west, but we'll have to limit the left turn lanes. So we can use that time to move people through the intersection, and that's what makes it more efficient. Those are similar patterns that we used at Rock when we built it. It went from about a 9-minute time period to less than 3 minutes during construction to get through that intersection, and we'd anticipate a similar savings in time during construction at Webb.
So Jim, do we have any other partners who've been involved in this effort?
Yes, we do. Parsons Brinkerhoff has been the main lead on our design team, and they've been an excellent partner in this. They've been fantastic to work with. They've come up with some innovative designs, helped with the Kellogg and Webb intersection, and we've been really happy with the professionalism they've shown.
That's wonderful.
I would say, I'd add that Jim and Mike had shown me some of the early drawings, and they just weren't happy, and there has been a lot of design and redesign, maybe 10, 12 renditions of it.
There's been a lot of iterations, and we've gone through a lot of painful processes, but we're really excited about the final design that we've got on this intersection.
Well, you guys should be proud. It looks very innovative.
It is.
I'm almost afraid to ask the question, but what happens next after we finish up the road work in this area at Kellogg and Webb?
Well, that's a good question, Laura Gail. you know, at the same time, there's already been designs and work being done on the next intersection to the east, a mile away, is Greenwich Road in Kellogg, and T-Works has also been a part of the T-Works money we referred to earlier on this project. The Webb Road will be in place at Greenwich. And Mike, how much was that?
It's going to be about $76 million they're going to contribute towards construction.
So the state, the T-Works has already committed that funding, so that's there, and we're kind of dovetailing it. It's not going to be done at the same time, but it is going to be done shortly, immediately after that. And really the goal is all the way to 96 for sure completion on that, and then far out from there later on.
It'll finish a connection between interchanges from the west side to the east side with I-235 on the west and K-96 on the east.
So at Kellogg and Greenwich, help me understand, does it add extra lanes, or what exactly does it do?
You're going to see again the standard 6-lane freeway with the frontage roads, and at that location the freeway will go over, which most of on the east side the freeway has gone under the side roads, but because of the terrain it will go over at that point.
Sounds like you guys are really thinking out of the box to save money.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
We're just excited to get started and let the public enjoy the improvements when they're done.
And we'll be trying to keep everybody abreast as when the groundbreaking starts officially. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, and maybe we do a follow-up, one of these or some other public information to get.
Absolutely. Where else can they go to get information? Is there a place online?
You can go to the City of Wichita's website, wichita.gov, and look for the public works section of that, and we have some images of the concept designs that we have out there, and also some reports and give you some background on the designs, and we'll update those as we finalize the final design.
Well, thank you guys for taking time to be here. It's been really interesting to hear about these road projects.
Thank you, Laura Gale.
All right, and thank you for watching this edition of Local Loop.